actually shaped by the mind you carry within you. So, welcome to our channel. This is a space for inner growth, clarity, and deeper way of understanding the life through literature and real experience. Here we do not rush, we slow down, we read, we reflect, and we gently return to something essential within ourselves. On this channel, we share the works of Xuemo, the writer in the poster on the background, a contemporary Chinese writer whose voice connects literature, culture, and the exploration of the human mind. And on this channel, we share his writings are not just stories, they are reflections of life, revealing how we think, how we feel, and how we unknowingly shape our own reality. Across his works, you will find themes of the desert, of survival, of love, of suffering, and most importantly, of the mind. And today, we are entering one of his most essential ideas. One that is simple in words but profound in its depth. The world is a reflection of the mind. Wait a second, let me check. Where is the book? The world is a reflection of the mind. This is the book we will be reading together today. So this book does not try to impress you. It invites you to look, to observe, and to question how your mind shapes everything you experience. So in today's live stream, I will read passages slowly and after each part, and we will stay with it for a moment and to feel and connect. You don't need to understand everything, you just need to listen and notice what moves within you. And maybe somewhere in these words, you will begin to see something about your own mind. So let me start. Today we are sharing the work, The World is a Reflection of the Mind. So, like, hi, I see a lot of new friends here. Please subscribe to our channel and give me some likes for support. Thank you for coming by. Thank you so much. So life is a giant dream. Life is like a train ride with no beginning and no end. You don't remember when you boarded the train, you only know what clothes you are wearing, whom you have talked to, and whom you have passed by. You know there have been some stories along the way, but you inevitably forget them in the end. At some point, you feel exhausted, and then death appears. Within a moment, everything seems to start again from the beginning. But you don't remember this as a new beginning. You totally forget about the previous journey. The clothes you wore, the people you met, remembered and forgot, the things you experienced and failed to recall. You only treat it as the one and only beginning. So, life as a train ride with no clear beginning and no final end. You don't remember when you got on and you don't know when it truly stops. And everything in between feels so important while it is happening. The people you meet, the roles you play, the emotions you go through, the stories you believe are defining your life. All of it feels solid. All of it feels meaningful. And yet the passage gently reminds us of something we rarely face. That everything we hold on to so tightly is also something we will eventually forget. Not because it was real in that moment, not because nothing stays. And this is where the metaphor of the train becomes so powerful. Hi, thank you for your message. So the meaning of life is given by yourself, and it is. This is the sentence from Xuemo's work. So if you have existential questions, you can read Xuemo's works. So and Xuemo's work are available on Amazon. You can search for Xuemo Xuemo on Amazon if you have this kind of existential questions. And yes, because I I always have these like existential questions from my childhood, like who am I? What is the meaning of life? What I am doing? What are all these things about? Um, yes. So if you have existential questions, you can read Xuemo's work because I find all the answers from Xuemo's work. And not only mm, about philosophy, but there is also a guide that you can follow. There is a path you can follow. And that is also why many readers say that Xuemo's work can illuminate people's inner light. So let's continue to this topic. So nothing stays. And on the train, people come and go. Some stay longer, some leave quickly, some feel important, some are barely noticed. But eventually, everyone gets off, and the train keeps moving. And there comes the part that is even more striking, that moment of exhaustion. And then death appears, and within a moment, everything starts again. But here is the key point. You don't remember that it is a new beginning. You believe it is the only beginning. And this is where the passage becomes less about time and more about the nature of the mind. Because the mind forgets, it forgets what came before. It forgets what it has already experienced. And because it forgets, it takes everything as new, as absolute, as if this moment is everything. And this is not just about some distant cycle, it is also happening in a much smaller way every day. How many times do we repeat the same reactions, the same emotion patterns, the same ways of seeing things? And each time it feels like this is just how things are. We don't see the repetition, we only feel the immediate dicey. So when the passage says life is like a dream, life is like a dream. It is not saying life is meaningless. Hey, are you still there? So it is about the meaning of the life. So it is not saying life is meaningless. It is pointing to how easily we become fully absorbed it, how we take everything as ultimate, how we forget to step back and see. Yes. Hi, we are sharing the wisdom from the book The World is the Reflection of the Mind. So maybe this is the invitation hidden in this passage, not to reject the journey, not to deny the people we meet, but to remember just a little that we are on the train, that things are moving, that nothing stays forever. And when we remember this, something softens. Less cleaning, less fair, less need to control everything. And maybe we begin to experience the journey differently, not as something we must hold on to, but as something we can move through with awareness. So, you're still here. Let me ask you something right now. If this is part of the journey, how would you experience it differently? How would you experience it differently? Okay, you can leave your message and let's continue reading. Buddhists believe that samsara, the cycle of birth and death, has an artistic appeal, yet its core essence is only suffering. But does samsara really exist? Perhaps it is merely an illusion, or perhaps it does truly exist. What's undeniable is that each of us undergoes samsara every day. In moments of ease and joy, we feel as carefree as heavenly beings. Anger and hatred trigger states similar to asuras. During times of ignorance and foolishness, we live like animals. Unbearable agony throws us into the hell. Insatiable greed turns us into hungry ghosts. And as humans, we struggle painfully between desires and conscience. So, samsara, have you ever heard about this kind of a word? It is a word usually from the Buddhism. So, samsara. Yes, you have heard about this. Okay, so it may sound distant at first, something philosophical and something ancient, something that belongs to religion or theory. So samsara, that it means, for example, you believe in the believing that there is past life, present life, and future life. So this passage immediately brings it much closer, not as something after death, but as something happening within life itself. And that changes everything. Because then the question is no longer, does samsara exist somewhere out there? The question becomes, can we see it right here? And the text gives us a very direct way to see, not through belief, but through observation. When we feel ease and joy, we feel almost light, almost free, almost like nothing can touch us. And in that moment, life feels open. But then something shifts, anger appears, frustration builds, and suddenly everything feels tense. We react quickly, we defend ourselves, we push against the world, and it is like we are in completely different state. And then there are moments of confusion, moments where we don't see clearly, where we act without awareness, where we follow habits without questioning them. And in those moments, life feels dull, almost mechanical. And then there were moments of pain, not just discomfort, something deeper, something that feels overwhelming, something we want to escape from immediately. And in those moments, the world feels heavy, closed, almost unbearable. And then there is desire, wanting more, never quite satisfied, always reaching. And even when something is gained, the mind quickly moves to the next thing, and there is no real rest. And when we look at all of this together, we begin to see something very clearly. These are not separate worlds. They are shifting states of the same mind. And we move through them again and again. Sometimes in one day, sometimes in just a few hours. So maybe this is what the passage means. Samsara is not only something cosmic, it is also psychological. It is the constant movement of the mind. And if we don't see it, we feel trapped inside it. We feel like life is controlling us. We feel like emotions are controlling us. But when we begin to see even a little bit, something changes. We are no longer completely inside it. We begin to observe it, and that small distance is very powerful. Because in that space, we don't have to become every state we pass through. We can feel anger. Without being completely taken over by it. Hi. Thank you for your time here. Please subscribe to our channel if you are new here. Today in this live session, we are sharing the wisdom from the book The World is a Reflection of the Mind by Xuemo. And this book is an insight of wisdom in traditional cultivation. Only those whose cultivation and realization reach the highest level are able to have this kind of wisdom and level of perception. So freedom begins from here, not by escaping the different states, emotions, but by seeing them clearly. And you don't need to decide whether samsara exists or not. Hi, hello, welcome both the new friends and the old friends here. Welcome. Thank you for your time. So please subscribe to our channel or give me some likes for support. Thank you so much. So notice your mind and notice how it moves. Notice how quickly it changes. And in that noticing, something already begins to shift. What is the name of the book? The world is a reflection of the mind. Again, can someone type the uh, the title of the book? The world is a reflection of the mind by Xuemo. You can search Xuemo on Amazon. So Xuemo as Xuemo, Xuemo. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. The world is a reflection of the mind. So is the cause of this emotional cycle also due to dependent arising? It can be said so, but it is more due to our forgetfulness. Most people are used to forgetting the presence of change. They always fail to perceive the dreamlike nature of the world. We often assume that the ever changing scenarios will be eternal, which is why we take pride in what we gain and feel sad for what we lose and feel anxious about the unknown. When we realize everything is like a dream, would we still care so much? So it sounds like philosophical at first, almost like something we need to analyze carefully, but conditions play a role, but something even closer is at work. Forgetfulness. Not forgetting facts, but forgetting something much more subtle. Forgetting that everything is changing. Forgetting that nothing stays the same. And because we forget this, we begin to treat the temporary as permanent. We treat passing moments as if they define everything. We take what we have right now and assume it will remain. And when it changes, we feel shocked. We feel hurt. We feel like something has gone wrong. And this is where the cycle begins. Because if we believe something should stay, then losing it becomes painful. If we believe something defines us, then change feels like a threat. If we believe the future must follow our expectations, then uncertainty creates anxiety. And slowly, gain becomes pride, lose becomes sadness, uncertain becomes fear. And all of this feels completely real. So, is everything is like a dream? If everything is like a dream, would we still care so much? And this is not asking us to become indifferent. It is not asking us to stop caring. It is inviting us to care differently. Because when we take things as absolute, we cling, we resist change, we suffer deeply when things shift. But when we begin to see the dream like nature, something softens. We still experience everything. Joy is still joy, lose is still lose, but there is a little more space, a little less gripping, a little less fair, a little less need to control. And maybe this is the real shift, not changing the world outside, but changing how tightly we hold it. Because the world will continue to change, that part is not in our control. But how we relate to that change, that can slowly transform. So we don't need to force ourselves to believe anything. We don't need to pretend everything is a dream. And just begin by noticing how quickly we assume things will stay, noticing how strongly we react to gain and lose, noticing how much fear comes from the unknown. And in that noticing, a small distance appears. And in that distance, there is a different way of living. So let me ask you something. If you truly knew that everything is constantly changing, what would you hold a little more lightly? So everything is constantly changing. What would you hold a little more lightly? Close your eyes and revisit those vivid dreams from times past. Imagine you're still in one of those dreams, the beautiful, terrifying, poignant, or absurd ones. Aren't they like a movie that you want to save again and again? But why don't you immerse yourself in the beauty of the dream? Why don't you feel saddened by its poignancy or terrified by its odd horror? It's because you know the gains and losses in the dream are not real. If you further understand that reality itself is akin to a dream, blurring the line between the true and the false, then you can live a life free of worries. So, when I think about the dreams, those dreams feel so real at the time. the joy felt real, the fear felt real, the sadness, the tension, even the absurdity, all of it felt completely convincing. And yet, the moment we wake up, something changes instantly. We don't try to hold on to the dream. We don't feel devastated by what we lost in it. We don't feel anxious about what might happen next inside it. And the reason is very simple. We know it was a dream. And this is where the passage becomes very subtle. It is not just talking about dreams, it is pointing how to how our relationship changes when we understand the nature of what we are experiencing. Because in the dream, we are completely immersed. We believe everything, we react to everything, but once we know, once we see clearly, something relaxes. So, so what if reality itself has a similar nature? Not that it is exactly the same as a dream, but that it is not as solid as we think. That what we experience as absolutely real may also be shifting, conditional, and not entirely fixed. And if we begin to see even a little of this, the question naturally arises: would we still hold everything so tightly? So hold nothing means let go of all the attachment. That is a real freedom. So would every game feel like everything? Would every loss feel unbearable? Would every uncertainty create such anxiety? So this is not about denying life and not about pretending nothing matters. It is about changing how we relate to what happens. Because when we think everything is absolute, we become entangled. When we see that everything is shifting, we begin to loosen. And this is where it becomes very powerful. You can live a life free of worries, not because problems disappear, not because life becomes perfect, but because the mind is no longer holding everything as absolute. And maybe this is something we can gently try try the next time something happens, something that normally triggers a strong reaction. Just pause for a second. So just pause for a second. And if you could see your life just a little bit like a dream, what would you stop worrying about so much? So if you could see your life just a little bit like a dream, what would you stop worrying about so much? Okay, next, still from the book, The World is a Reflection of the Mind. And when I say I once practiced Jin yoga, you should know that it means Mr. Xuemo, not me, okay? I once practiced dream yoga, which transformed my dreams into enjoyable and impactful experiences. With lucidity in dreams, you gain a sense of wakefulness and control. This control over your dreams is truly exhilarating as you become both the protagonist and the director, as well as the participant and the observer. Lucid dreaming allows you to experience the joy of mastering your heart mind. You come to realize that the pressures offered by the external world can never compare to the autonomy and freedom that comes from within the mind. So, when we hear about lucid dreaming, it sounds almost extraordinary, like something only a few people can experience. Of course, yes, only a few people can experience. So, what is being described is not only about controlling dreams, it is about becoming aware within that experience. In the dream, when you become lucid, you're still inside the dream, but you're no longer completely lost in it. You begin to see what is happening. You begin to recognize that this is constructive experience. And in that moment, something shifts. You are no longer only the character, you are also the one who is aware of the character. You are not only reacting what happens, you begin to participate consciously. And this is why it feels so powerful, because there is freedom inside the experience. So the sense of control and clarity feels exhilarating, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer unconscious. And this is not only about dreams at night, it is pointing to something in waking life as well. Because in daily life, most of the time we are in a dream. We react automatically. We follow habits. We are pulled by emotions. We are absorbed in stories, and we rarely step back to see. And what if, just like in lucid dreaming, we begin to have moments of awareness within our daily life? And if you keep practicing this, something very similar begin to happen. We are still in life, still in the same situations, but we no longer are completely trapped inside them. We become both the participant and the observer. We are living and we are aware that we are living. And this is where a very different kind of freedom appears. Not the freedom of controlling everything outside, because that is almost impossible, but the freedom of not being completely controlled from inside. So the, the sentence is very striking that the pressures from the external world can never compare to the autonomy that comes from within the mind. Because external pressure may still exist, situations may still be difficult, uncertainty may still be there. But when the mind is not completely entangled, the experience changes. And maybe this is something we can gently take with us, not to try to control everything in life, not to force oneself into some perfect state, but to begin to noticing again and again where we are lost and where we can wake up just a little. So let's continue. Imagine you are in a dream where you have a crush on someone without hesitation. You offer them your love and sincerity, fully aware that it's a dream, where gains and losses are as illusory as scenes in a movie. You wholeheartedly embrace your role as the protagonist, concerned about the outcome of this relationship. By doing so, you fully enjoy the process of romance, where both smiles and tears possess a poetic quality. Similarly, in a dream, you might encounter a terrifying beast, its teeth holding bloody, severed limbs. Despite your fear, you remain unafraid, knowing that life and death are mere illusions. As you flee, you look for weapons and chances to fight back. Finding a sharp spear, you wait for the perfect moment. As the beast attacks, you skillfully pierce its head, experiencing a genuine thrill. So, not to remove life and not to escape emotion, but to change how deeply we are entangled in it. Because in the dream, you are free to love without fear of losing. You are free to face danger without being paralyzed. You are free to act fully while knowing that nothing is absolute. And what if life could be lived in a similar way, not as a detached observer, not as someone who doesn't care, but as someone who participates fully while remaining aware, to love deeply but not be not be destroyed by loss, to face fear but not be controlled by it, to engage with life but not forget its changing nature. And maybe this is what gives rise to a different kind of freedom. Not freedom from experience, but freedom within experience. And so, in your own life, where are you holding too tightly? Where are you afraid to feel fully? And where might there be a little more space? If you remembered just a little that everything is moving. So, if you're still here, you can share with us that in your own life, where are you holding too tightly? And where are you afraid to feel fully? Okay, yes, you can question yourself. So let's continue. Unconcerned by outcomes is the benefit of dreams. Although in this dreamlike world that most people see as reality, we may not encounter wild beasts or soar into the sky. We can definitely adopt a dreamlike mindset and perceive gains and losses as unimportant. How can we perceive them as unimportant? Adapt to circumstances and stop feeling worried. In other words, let go of everything. So let go of everything. Let go of any attachment. What does it really mean to let go? You can share your idea. So what does it really mean to let go? It doesn't mean walking away from life. It doesn't mean giving up responsibilities. It doesn't mean becoming indifferent. It means something much more subtle. It means not holding so tightly inside. Because most of our suffering does not come from what happens. It comes from how tightly we hold on to what happens. We want things to stay. We want outcomes to match our expectations. We want control. And the reality does not follow. Tension appears, anxiety appears, fear appears. So when we say that we can see gains and losses as unimportant, it is not saying they do not exist. It is saying they do not have to control us. And to adapt to circumstances is not passive. It is actually very intelligent. Because when we stop resisting everything, we begin to see more clearly. When we stop insisting that things must be a certain way, we begin to respond more freely. And this is where worry begins to dissolve. Not because life becomes predictable, but because we are no longer fighting every change. And if we connect this back to the idea of the dream, it becomes clearer. In a dream, when you know it is a dream, you still act, you still feel, but you are not trapped. You don't panic over every shift. You don't cling to every gain. You don't collapse at every loss. And this is the mindset the passage is pointing toward, not escaping life, but moving through it with lightness. And the next time something happens, something that normally creates worry, you can pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I holding on to right now? What am I afraid to lose? And is it something that must define me? So there will be a little space, and in that space, a different way of responding becomes possible. So again, what is the one thing in your life that you might be holding just a little too tightly? Hi, thank you for your kind words. Um, Thank you for your support. I'm glad to hear that. So, thank you for coming by for the old friends, and if you are new here, please subscribe to our channel. Today we are sharing the book, The World is a Reflection of the Mind, and it is available on Amazon. So first, I think you can subscribe to our channel and you can follow up in the future, because our space is not for entertainment, but for self-growth, inner peace, spirituality. So follow us and let's grow together. Yes, absorb the wisdom from the traditional culture and nourish our soul. So let's continue. Unfortunately, some become so obsessed with their romantic feeling that they will resort to any means to possess it. If they are unable to attain the object of their affection, they even become willing to destroy it and deprive others of it. One of my students shared with me a tragedy wherein a man developed feelings for his female colleague. However, when his love was rejected, he raped and killed her, burying her body on a rooftop. The student asked me if this could be considered love. I responded with a resounding no. There is no form of love that would drive people to harm those they claim to love. This so-called love is merely a desire that superficially resembles love. Many people confuse desire with love, leading many murderers to employ love as an excuse for their crimes. It is precisely because many fail to grasp the true essence of love when presented with an opportunity that they lose the chance for love. In response, some people, after seeing through the illusions of the mortal world, transform their petty love, previously centered on individuals, into a greater love for all sentient beings, a religious spirit that closely resembles love. So, what is love? What is love? Leave your message. Thank you for your message. So, what is love? What is love? Hi, I see many new friends here. You can stay for a while and let's talk about the topic love. What is love? Because in everyday language, and at the same time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So, what is love? So, people use the word love very easily to describe attachment, to describe desire, to describe possession. But these are not the same thing. When someone says they love another person, but becomes angry when rejected, or becomes destructive when they cannot possess them, then something is already distorted. Because love does not harm, it does not destroy, it does not take away another person's freedom. What is being described here is something else. Actually, it is desire, attachment, the need to possess, and when this becomes strong enough, they can completely override reason. They can blur judgment. They can turn something that looks like love into something dangerous. And this is why the passage says something very important, that this is not love. It only resembles love on the surface. Thank you for your wonderful message here. Thank you. Yes, we are talking about the love. And so many people at some point in life. So Loic, I'm Loic. So Loic says, in love there is neither giving or receiving. Simply put, no doing of the doer. And Robert is, true love and desire are very different. Yeah. Wow. Any other viewers, you have anything to say about what is love? Uh, so we are talking about what is love. So at some point in life, many people mistaken intensity for love, have mistaken attachment for love, and mistaken control for care. And this is where suffering begins. Because when desire is mistaken for love, it always comes with fear. Fear of losing, rejection, fear of not being enough. And when fear is intensified, it can lead to extreme actions. So, not just to judge others, but to look at ourselves. When we say we care about someone, is there freedom in that care? Or is there pressure, openness, or is there control? So we can also transform small love, actually can transform the small love into something larger. Not love that is limited to one person, but a love that expands, a love that includes others, a love that is not based on possession, a love that does not create harm. And when love becomes like this, something changes. It is no longer heavy, no longer fearful, no longer dependent on outcome. It becomes something more stable, more open, more aligned with clarity. So this is something we can reflect. When I say I love, what do I actually mean? Is it something that frees the other person or something that tries to hold them? So ask yourself, when you say love, what do you actually mean? Is it something that frees the other person or something that tries to hold the person? Interesting topic. Free or hold the other? Hold. Okay, I think it's very hard for ordinary person to, to free the other person because of love. But usually we will choose to hold the one we love. Okay. Hi, the new friends here. We are talking about the love, what the true love is. And there is always very interesting questions in the live session. Okay, so let's continue. Share the book. The world is a reflection of the mind by Xuemo. Misunderstanding like this permeate various aspects of life. So the Buddhists view ignorance as the root cause of human suffering. Due to ignorance, we mistake the false for the true, and we cling to illusions as if we were concrete reality. When these illusions fade away, we are left with suffering. It just Due to ignorance, we mistake the false for the true, and we cling to illusions as if we were concrete reality. When these illusions fade away, we are left with suffering. It just resembles the act of trying to hold water in a pail, stubbornly refusing to admit its impossibility, while fixating on the duration and manner of holding the fist. What is the point of that? When you understand even life itself is a giant illusion, you become less attached to everything. So ignorance is not about lacking information. Actually, it is about not seeing clearly, not seeing the nature of what we are holding on to. Because when we mistake the false for the true, everything that follows feels real. The attachment feels real, the expectation feels real, the fear of losing feels real, and we build our emotion world on top of that. But then comes the moment when illusion shifts. Something changes, something fades, something we thought would stay does not stay. And that is when suffering appears. Not because change is wrong, but because we were holding on to it as if it should not change. So try to hold water in your palm. At first, it feels possible. You close your hand, try to contain it, but no matter how tightly you hold, it slips away. Instead of questioning whether it can be held, we focus on how to hold it better, how to hold it longer, and how to prevent the loss. And that is a quiet trap. Because the problem was never the method, it was the assumption. The assumption that it could be held at all. And when we begin to see this, something shifts very gently. We stop fighting reality in the same way. We stop insisting that things must stay. We stop building an identity on what is changing. So even lying itself is an illusion, which means that we are clinging to is not only unstable, but also not as solid as we think. And this does not make life meaningless. It actually makes it lighter. Because if nothing needs to be held absolutely, then we can finally relax a little. We can still experience everything: joy, connection, achievement, even loss. But we don't have to turn each experience into something permanent. And this is where attachment begins to loosen. Not by force, not by denial, but by seeing clearly. So again, we can ask ourselves, what am I trying to hold that is actually like water in my hand? That something can finally soften. Okay, we commonly regard birth as the beginning of life and death as its end, but that is not the truth of life. Conditions perpetually change, and life is in a constant state of flux. Consider the sandcastle children build on the beach. Does it have a fixed nature? Is it sand or a castle? Or is it both or neither? In fact, it's simply a phenomenon arising from the aggregation of the elements. When old conditions dissipate and new conditions arise, such as the erosion from sea wind or big waves, it transforms into something else entirely. It lacks a permanent nature. The same applies to human beings and all phenomena in the world, extending to the life and death, birth and death, signify a transition, a change that becomes more apparent, easily perceived by the naked eye and conceptual mind. Change occurs not only in the moments of birth and death, just as an apartment undergoes depreciation. People too are in a constant process of aging, and countless subtle changes occur in every moment, including the metabolic replacement of cells and the continuous fluctuation of thoughts. Understanding this, you will realize that life itself is nothing but a giant dream. So, this is a very different view of life, that there is no fixed point, no absolute beginning, no final ending. There is only change, continuous, ongoing, subtle, and obvious, always unfolding. So, life is anything, anything in the world is simply a temporary formation, a gathering of conditions, nothing more. And the moment conditions change, the form changes. Wind blows, waves arise, the structure dissolves, and something else appears. So, what we call a castle was never a fixed entity. It was a label, a momentary appearance. And human beings are the same. So human beings are the same. What we call a person is also a gathering of conditions, body, thoughts, memories, emotions, all constantly changing. So even in this very moment, cells are being replaced, breath is moving, thoughts are appearing and disappearing. Nothing is standing still. And yet we still feel like there is something solid, me, the me, and something continuous, something that can define us. And this is where the misunderstanding quietly happens. We take the flowing and treat it as fixed, and we take the temporary and treat as it's permanent. And when change becomes visible, we call it birth or death. But in reality, change was always happening. Birth is just a visible transition, and death is just another visible transition. But the process itself never stopped. And when we begin to really feel this, something opens. Life is no longer a fixed story, it becomes continuous unfolding. And so life is like a dream. Yeah, life is like a dream. So can anyone help me type the word sentence here? Life is like a dream. So life is like a dream, not because it is unreal in the sense of non-existent, but because it is fluid, changing, unfixed. And when we see this, something naturally becomes lighter. We don't need to hold everything so tightly. We don't need to define everything so strongly. Because what we are experiencing is already moving. So we can also look at our lives not as something fixed, but as something that is constantly changing. And in that shift of perspective, maybe there may be already be a little more space and a little more ease, a little less fair. Hi, welcome to our channel. How about this? Wow, it looks shiny. So life's like a dream. Life's like a dream, and we are sharing the wisdom from the book. The world is a reflection of the mind. Okay, then let's continue the next topic. We just shared the content. Life is a giant dream. And then let's go to the next session. Life is a giant illusion. So we mentioned that the truth of life is a giant illusion. So what about humans? What is the truth of humanity? The truth of humanity is also an illusion, a game of elemental combinations, much like children playing with building blocks. Imagine some kids using blocks to build a small castle. This castle only exists for a period of time, but they quickly knock it down and build something else. Thus, the existence of the castle is an illusion, fading away when the elements disperse. This concept also applies to human life and human existence. Our thoughts, emotions, health conditions, internal bodily environments, appearances, destinies, and more all constantly change as conditions evolve. There is no fixed or unchanging state, no independent entity that does not go through birth and move towards death. So ultimately, there is no truly existing building block castle, nor is there a truly existing human. Everything is labeled with a certain name of signify subtle distinctions, yet fundamentally they represent the same phenomenon, change. If there is any significant difference between us and building blocks, it lies in presence of a soul, not the divine self, capable of recognizing the true mind and comprehending the true essence of life. So if life is like this, then what about us? So the answer is simple, but also very challenging. Human existence is also an illusion. Hey, what do you think about of this idea that human existence is also an illusion? What do you think? Can you share? So, human existence is also an illusion, and not in the sense that nothing exists at all, but in the sense that what we take as solid is actually a temporary combination. So, this is where the image of building blocks becomes very clear. Children build a castle. For a moment, it looks complete. It looks real. It has form, a structure, a name, but then they knock it down and build something else. So the question is, did the castle ever truly exist as something fixed, or was it always just a temporary arrangement? And this is exactly what the passage is pointing to about us. What we call a person is also made of conditions, thoughts, emotions, physical states, memories, roles, all of them shifting, all of them changing. Even what we call identity is not fixed. It changes over time with experience and with perspective. Wow, so many wonderful talkings in our message, the chat section. And we will still feel there is something solid, the self. the real and unchanging self, something that must be protected, something that must succeed, something that must not disappear. And this is where tension arises because we are trying to hold something that is inherently changing. And then comes this very, very important line that everything is given a name to mark subtle distinctions. We say, this is me, this is my life, this is my identity. But beneath all these labels, what is actually happening? Change, continuous change. So when we begin to see this, something loosens. The need to define everything strongly begins to soften. The need to protect a fixed self begins to relax. So there is something that can recognize not the constructed self, not the changing identity, but something that can see all of this, something that is aware of the change without being limited by them. And this is where the direction shifts again from trying to hold the illusion to recognizing it. Because once something is seen clearly, it no longer has the same power to bind us. So we don't need to force ourselves to accept anything. Just notice, notice how everything in your life is moving. Notice how even what you call yourself is changing. So if everything you take as solid is actually changing, what would you stop holding so tightly? Okay, the ego, truth. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for all your message. Thank you for your time. So today we've walked through something very simple yet very deep. Life as a dream, life as an illusion, and the human being is something constantly changing, not fixed, not solid, but always in motion. Maybe the most important thing is not to believe this immediately, but to begin to see, seeing how tightly we hold things, seeing how quickly we assume that something will stay, seeing how easily we get pulled into gain and loss. Because once we begin to see even a little bit, something changes. Not outside, but inside. So, for this live session, I think you don't need to take anything with you. Just the one small thing is enough. A question, a feeling, or simply the awareness that everything is moving and you don't have to hold it so tightly. Okay. So again, simple. Everything is moving, so you don't have to hold it so tightly. And um, and before I close the live session today, so I'd like to return to the author behind this sharing and these words. Xuemo is a contemporary Chinese writer whose works explore life, the mind, and the deeper nature of human experience. And his writings are not only literature, but also a kind of inner exploration. Across novels, essays, and philosophical reflections, he brings together stories of the desert, human struggle, love, suffering, and awakening through understanding the mind. And books like The World is a Reflection of the Mind are not meant to be read quickly. They are meant to be returned to sit with, and to reflect through. Because sometimes one sentence is enough to open a new way of seeing. And sometimes an idea can stay with you for a very long time. So if today's sharing has given you even a small moment of clarity, then perhaps this book has already begun its work. And if you'd like to continue exploring Xuemo's works, you can visit shop.xuemo.com or find some of his titles on Amazon. So take your time with them. So take your time with them and no need to rush. Maybe what matters is not how much we read, but how deeply we see. So thank you again for being here today. Thank you for all the friends here, old friends here. Thank you for your companion. Thank you for your precious time. And thank you for your wonderful talking during our live session. Yeah. So welcome to my live session. My next live session. Yes. Thank you. Take care. Stay away, aware. Yes. See you next time.